The fever hit Isaac Kerren on the 4th day aboard the Yeltrax medical orbiter. It was the kind of fever that came with heavy limbs and a buzzing skull, the kind that made him squint at the overhead lights like they were trying to stab him. He'd been assigned as a liaison between Earth's United Health Assembly and the Virellians, a species renowned for their advancements in xenomedicine. For the past 3 days, he'd toured sterile labs, sampled nutrient pastes, and sat through endless lectures about cellular regeneration and neural harmonics. Now he just wanted to lie down and not move. Isaac peeled himself off the diagnostics chair and stumbled into the corridor, one hand braced against the wall. The floor felt uneven, though he knew it wasn't. Every few steps, the world leaned sideways. He barely made it into Medbay Delta B before collapsing onto the padded recliner. A high-pitched trill buzzed from the wall. A moment later, Dr. Helix entered, his translucent skin shifting from lavender to alarmed orange. "You are unstable," Helix said, his voice vibrating through the translator unit strapped to his thorax. Isaac coughed hard into his sleeve, then looked up with bleary eyes. "Fever," he muttered. "Just a fever." Helix's pupils dilated vertically. "You are emitting elevated thermal readings from your dermal layers. This is consistent with internal system failure." Isaac shook his head once, slow and deliberate. "Just need soup. Maybe some rest." "Soup," Helix repeated, already circling Isaac with a handheld scanner. "What biochemical compound is that? Is it intravenous?" Isaac coughed again and waved a hand vaguely. "No. Hot liquid. Vegetables. Sometimes noodles. Helps with colds." Helix dropped the scanner, clattered onto the counter. "This is a contagion?" "No," Isaac groaned. "It happens. People get sick. I just need time." Helix's skin pulsed red. "Time? No. This must be treated before cerebrovascular collapse occurs. Your temperature is 3.5 degrees above your standard baseline. That is catastrophic." Isaac opened one eye and stared. "Helix, I'm not dying. Humans get fevers all the time. It's part of the immune response." Helix whirled toward the console and activated a holographic interface, his tendrils trembling. "I must notify Central. This is a Category 3 emergency." No, Isaac tried to sit up and failed. "Don't. Just maybe bring some water." But Helix was already transmitting. Within minutes, 2 more Virellian medics hovered into the room, their skin flashing in unison. One of them carried an emergency cryostabilizer. "Begin neural cooling," said the taller one. "We must reduce internal temperatures before protein denaturation occurs." "Stop," Isaac wheezed, flailing one arm. "You'll freeze my brain." The medics hesitated, glancing toward Helix. "He's resisting treatment," Helix said, voice tight. "He does not comprehend the seriousness." Isaac managed to prop himself up on one elbow. "I comprehend it just fine. This is normal. Humans have fevers. We sweat. We sleep. Sometimes we complain. But we don't need cryoguns." Helix looked genuinely baffled. "You were suggesting deliberate inaction?" "Rest," Isaac said. "Blanket. Maybe some chamomile tea if you can synthesize that." The medics exchanged a glance, then slowly backed away. Helix turned back to Isaac, cautiously retrieving the scanner again. "This defies protocol." Isaac leaned back, letting his eyes close. "Welcome to Earth medicine, Helix." 20 minutes later, he was tucked into a diagnostics bed with a hydration four in his arm and a steaming bowl of something vaguely resembling soup on the tray beside him. Helix stood nearby, watching as Isaac sipped cautiously. "This is restorative?" "It's broth," Isaac said. "It's not magic. Just warm and comforting." Helix's skin shifted to an uncertain blue. "It smells fermented. That's the vegetables." "You'll live. I am not the one in danger. You never were." Isaac set the bowl down and pulled the blanket tighter. His limbs still felt heavy, but the dizziness was fading. He sank deeper into the cushion and let his breathing slow. Helix remained standing for a long time, arms folded, recording data. Finally, he said, "Your species is deeply flawed. You rely on passive recovery. No regenerative nanites. No cellular acceleration. Wait. Sometimes we watch bad TV while we do it too." Helix looked horrified. Isaac closed his eyes and fell asleep to the sound of a flustered alien mumbling into a recorder. He awoke 3 hours later to a full diagnostic array projecting his vitals. His fever had dropped slightly, but more importantly, he no longer felt like he was swimming through tar. A soft light pulsed overhead and someone had placed a cup of tea at his bedside. "You are improving," Helix said, looming nearby. "Told you. But you remain febrile. Should we resume neural cooling treatment?" "No," Isaac said. "I'll sweat it out." Helix tapped the screen beside him. "Sweating is inefficient. It risks dehydration. Your species is recklessly inefficient. Yet somehow we're still around." Helix didn't answer. Later that day, a Virellian ambassador named Kerren arrived to observe Isaac's condition. He wore ceremonial sashes and carried a data rod. "You are the human afflicted with internal combustion," Kerren said solemnly. Isaac frowned. "It's a fever. Your thermal instability has caused considerable distress aboard this facility. Several staff members have entered stress-induced hibernation. I didn't mean to cause panic. You requested soup." "I did." Kerren turned slowly to Helix. "Did the soup resolve the combustion?" Helix hesitated. "It appears to have contributed to recovery." Kerren looked back at Isaac. "Your methods are barbaric, but effective." Isaac gave a small nod. "We work with what we've got." Kerren bowed low and exited the room. The next day, Isaac was stronger. He managed to sit upright without dizziness and even stood briefly with Helix's help. The fever had broken during the night, leaving him drenched and exhausted but no longer burning. Helix hovered nearby with a data slate. "You appear stabilized. See? No cryoguns needed. I have compiled a report. It includes your dietary requests, passive treatment protocol, and recovery progression. It may lead to a reclassification of human fevers from Category 3 to Category 1. Glad to help. But I must ask," Helix said, lowering the slate, "why do your people not evolve more efficient methods? Why rely on blankets and boiled plants?" Isaac looked at him, eyes tired but clear. "Because it works. Because sometimes, when you're sick, the best thing is warmth, rest, and something that tastes like home." Helix tilted his head. "You are strange." Isaac smiled faintly. "So are you." For the next 2 days, Isaac remained under observation. His system returned to normal and he regained strength slowly. Helix monitored every detail, from appetite to mood, and even attempted to replicate various Earth soups. The results were patchy at best. "I believe I have perfected the flavor profile," Helix said, presenting a steaming bowl of violet liquid. Isaac sniffed it and winced. "That smells like feet." "Feet? Never mind." Still, he drank it and Helix watched with rapt attention as he finished the bowl. By the end of the week, Isaac was walking unaided. The medical crew seemed less tense around him now, though some still kept a cautious distance. On his final day aboard the Yeltrax orbiter, Helix met him at the airlock. "I have updated our medical protocols. Future fevers will be treated with passive rest and nutrient infusion pending patient preference." Isaac extended a hand. Helix stared at it, then reached forward and clasped it awkwardly. "You are resilient," Helix said. "Impossibly so." Isaac shrugged. "We do what we can." As the transport doors closed behind him, Helix stood in the corridor, watching the human leave. He still didn't understand how soup and sleep could reverse what looked like biological collapse. But he had data now, and data never lied. The airlock hissed shut behind Isaac, and the transport's internal lights adjusted to a dim amber as it disembarked from the orbiter. He dropped into the crash couch, allowing the harness to seal around his shoulders automatically. Across from him, a Tervathi technician blinked with what might have been sympathy or possibly indigestion. Hard to tell with the Tervathi. Isaac pulled his hood up and closed his eyes. The fever was gone, but he was still wrung out like a dishcloth left on the radiator too long. He just wanted to sleep through atmospheric re-entry. The shuttle's landing was rougher than usual. Not bumpy, just indifferent. The kind of descent that suggested the autopilot had better things to do. When the bay doors finally opened, Isaac stepped into the arrival's hub of Earth's orbital health liaison station, still blinking off shuttle lag. The corridor lights here were brighter, warmer, and mercifully free of lavender-skinned doctors waving cryostabilizers. He was halfway to the debriefing suite when someone caught his sleeve. "Mr. Kerren, you're being summoned to briefing room Epsilon 7. Isaac turned. The speaker was a short woman in a stiff, navy blue uniform with the UHA crest at her collarbone and a tablet clutched like a weapon. "I wasn't scheduled for any follow-ups," Isaac said. She didn't blink. "The Virellian consular delegation requested it. They have inquiries." He sighed and followed her down a series of elevators and echoing corridors, past a garden courtyard where a pair of mechans argued over plant anatomy, and into a windowless room with 4 chairs, a central table, and a pitcher of something green that steamed slightly. 3 Virellians were already inside. None of them were Helix. The tallest of the trio stood as Isaac entered, his robes stiff with ceremonial embroidery and his cranial fronds carefully arranged into a lattice that probably took hours. "You are Isaac Kerren, human liaison and recent medical subject." "That's me. Fully recovered, thanks." The Virellian didn't sit. "We have reviewed your treatment data. It has raised concerns." Isaac lowered himself into the nearest chair and leaned back. "Let me guess. You're wondering how I didn't liquefy my frontal cortex." The shortest delegate, a pale green one with wide ocular plates, twitched. "There was no active intervention. No regenerative compound. No thermal inhibitors. Your own immune system resolved the crisis." "Yep." The tall one paced a half-step. "You refused advanced treatment options. You exerted minimal effort. You ingested boiled plant matter and reduced your metabolic activity. I took a nap. This is not a protocol. This is abandonment of care." Isaac poured himself a cup of the steaming green liquid and took a cautious sip. Tasted like mint and carbonated algae. "You ever stub your toe?" he asked. The Virellians went still. "I'm sorry," Isaac said. "Do you have toes?" The tall one straightened. "We possess end limbs. They are not externally vulnerable." "Okay, well, when humans stub a toe, we don't rush to a surgical bay. We hop around, swear a lot, and wait for it to stop hurting. This is grotesque. To you, maybe, but to us, it's normal. We don't fix every problem with machines. Sometimes all you need is time and a quiet room." The green one leaned forward. "You demonstrated no distress during your febrile state?" "Oh, I was miserable. But distress doesn't mean disaster." The third delegate, who'd remained silent until now, finally spoke. "Is it common among your species to endure pain without remedy?" Isaac considered. "Not without complaint. But yeah, we're pretty good at waiting things out." There was a pause. The tall one's fronds quivered. "This suggests a troubling deviation from rational care models. You prioritize tolerance over correction. We prioritize practicality. Not every problem needs a scalpel." They stared at him. Isaac stood and stretched, feeling the stiffness in his spine pop like old bubble wrap. "Look, I'm not saying your methods are wrong. You've got tech that can regrow organs in a week. That's amazing. But sometimes the body knows what it's doing." The green delegate tapped his data slate. "You did not even consume anti-inflammatory agents. You relied on perspiration and sedimentary rest." "I had soup." They all looked at the pitcher in front of him. That, he said, was not soup. Isaac was dismissed after another 10 minutes of questioning. He didn't return to his quarters. Instead, he wandered the station's central atrium, letting the artificial sunlight and mild gravity lull his nerves back into something resembling calm. He hadn't anticipated this much scrutiny over a fever, but in hindsight it made sense. The Virellians weren't just curious, they were unnerved. By Earth standards, Isaac's recovery had been uneventful. But to them, it was like watching someone survive a car crash by walking it off. 2 hours later, his tablet pinged with a message from Station Ops. "Incoming delegation. Virellian. Escort requested." He groaned, stood, and headed for docking platform 6. The transport was sleek and silent, its hull rippling with active camouflage. As the ramp lowered, Helix stepped out, flanked by 2 assistants with matching medical packs. "Isaac," Helix said, "your presence is required in a field study. I just got back. You are uniquely qualified." "For what?" Helix gestured toward the transport. "To demonstrate passive recovery techniques in varied environments. Your species' resilience must be observed under different conditions. I'm not a lab rat. You are a statistical anomaly." Isaac rubbed his temples. "Where are we going?" "An outpost in the Martian expanse. Ambient conditions include low humidity, fluctuating pressure zones, and limited shelter. Optimal for stress testing. I'm not sick. We have prepared stimuli." He stared at Helix. "You're going to make me sick on purpose?" "We will induce minor discomfort. Controlled, of course. You want me to catch a cold on Mars?" Helix nodded as if this was the most reasonable thing anyone had ever proposed. "I need hazard pay. We have included a stipend." 3 hours later, he was sitting in a pressurized dome on the edge of a Martian ravine, wrapped in a heat-retaining blanket and sipping lukewarm broth while Helix adjusted the atmospheric controls. "I still don't see how this proves anything. You are functioning under suboptimal parameters. This is valuable. I've been camping before." "This is nicer. We are monitoring your cortisol levels." Isaac sneezed. Helix perked up. "Excellent. This is insane. Your vital signs remain stable." Outside, the wind howled across the rust-colored plain. Inside, Isaac leaned back in the reclining cot and stared at the ceiling. "How long are we doing this?" "Until your immune response completes." "Great." Helix sat beside him, taking notes. "Do you experience psychological distress from this state?" "I'm annoyed." "That is not pathological." "Good to know." Later that night, or what passed for night under Mars-filtered sky, Isaac lay awake, wrapped in thermal sheets, listening to the faint hum of the air recycler. His head was stuffy, his throat raw, and his sinuses ached like someone had packed them with gravel. Still, he wasn't worried. Across the room, Helix observed him through a thermal scanner. "You are experiencing discomfort. Welcome to the human condition. Your resilience is inefficient. Your efficiency is exhausting." Helix recorded that. By morning, the worst had passed. Isaac's sinuses cleared, his temperature dropped, and his appetite returned. He ate a ration bar while Helix examined the mucus samples with what could only be described as reverence. "You expelled pathogens without synthetic assistance." "I sneezed 12 times in a row." "You looked like you were watching fireworks." "This data will recalibrate our understanding of biological persistence." Isaac crumpled the wrapper. "Glad to be of service." Helix stood. "There's one final test." Isaac groaned. "No more climates." "No. This is sociocultural." He raised an eyebrow. "We will expose other species to your recovery model. We wish to observe their reactions." "You want me to sneeze in front of aliens?" "Yes." He sighed. "Fine. But I want real soup this time." Helix tapped his communicator. "Define real." Isaac was seated on a shallow cushioned bench inside a climate-controlled observation dome, sipping from a thermos of actual chicken broth this time. He'd brought it himself. He wasn't taking any chances after the Martian algae incident. Outside the curved glass, a pale blue sky stretched over the rocky plains of Ceres 9's equatorial biome, a terraformed research colony designed for interspecies medical collaboration. It was warm enough to walk without a suit, but dry enough that his lips had cracked within an hour. The room's only door slid open and a line of delegates entered, each accompanied by a Virellian monitor. They moved with the hesitant choreography of those unsure whether what they were witnessing was educational or blasphemous. Isaac lowered the thermos. The first to approach was a slender Shantari with a crest of filament-like appendages that twitched rhythmically as she studied him. She carried a sealed container filled with what Isaac guessed was some kind of antiseptic vapor, given the way it hissed softly every time she tilted it. Are you the human who repaired himself without corrective infusion? She asked. I didn't repair anything. My body did. I just let it. Her crest twitched again, more agitated now. You did not stimulate your lymphatic nodes with directed pulses? No blood oxygenation flooding? No internal nanite activation? I added ginger to the broth. The Shantari turned abruptly and uttered something to her Virellian guide, who carefully noted it. She left without another word. Next came a Drelvik, tall and leathery with a vertical mouth and pupils that blinked independently. He approached cautiously, holding a holopad that displayed a rotating model of Isaac's immune system, annotated with dozens of question marks. You permitted viral replication without countersaturation? Briefly. Then my immune cells handled it. You allowed mutation cycles to proceed uncontained? Not allowed. Just didn't interfere. The Drelvik tapped the holopad and peered at Isaac with something approaching morbid awe. You are a statistical hazard. Thanks, I think. 2 more species cycled through. One asked if Isaac had entered a trance state to command his mitochondria. Another wanted to know what specific organ he'd ejected to purge the illness. By the time the last group entered, Isaac had finished the broth and was considering lying down just to prove a point. But the trio that came in now wasn't like the others. They didn't carry devices or samples. They didn't wear ceremonial robes or protective gear. They just looked fascinated. The middle one, a squat, stone-skinned being with no visible eyes, leaned forward and sniffed Isaac's wrist. You carry no infection anymore. Nope. You are not encased in medical foam. Nope. You are not genetically edited. Still nope. The creature stood back. We believed your species was fragile. Most do at first. You are not fragile. You are chaotic. Isaac grinned. We prefer adaptable. The stone-skinned alien nodded slowly, then turned to the others. Without a word, they left together almost reverently. Helix, who had been standing to the side for the entire process, stepped forward and adjusted one of the room's environmental vents. You have altered 3 treatment models today, he said. I sat on a bench and drank soup. Yes. And you demonstrated that your species recovers through disorderly endurance rather than directed intervention. It's not disorder. It's just patience. Helix didn't respond right away. He seemed to be thinking, which for him involved subtle color shifts and a low, almost inaudible humming from his chest cavity. Then, abruptly, he turned and activated the wall display. It showed a chart human recovery times under various conditions compared to standard interspecies therapies. You are inefficient, but you are unpredictable. You recover from conditions we do not classify as survivable. Isaac shrugged. We've had a lot of practice. Helix turned back from the chart. I no longer believe your species is ill-suited to galactic integration. That was in question? Not officially. Isaac leaned back on the bench, letting his shoulders relax. So, what now? You've got your data. I've sneezed on 6 species. Can I go home? Helix hesitated. One final inquiry remains. Isaac groaned. Please don't say nasal irrigation. Helix stepped closer. What do you attribute your recovery to? Be specific. He sat up straighter and gave the question some thought. Not the kind of surface-level answer he'd been giving all week. This time, he considered it properly. All right. When I got sick, I didn't panic. I didn't fight it. I rested. I drank fluids. I gave my body what it needed and waited. That's it. I trusted the process. Helix tilted his head. But why trust a process that is not actively guided? Because it's mine. It's in my DNA. My ancestors survived worse with less. Sometimes your best option isn't to fight the storm. It's to let it pass. Helix was silent for a long beat. Then he deactivated the display. This concludes the observational trial. You may return to Earth. Really? Yes. Isaac stood, stretching his arms overhead. No more Martian sniff tests? No more simulated infections. No, he picked up the empty thermos. Can I keep this dome blanket? No, didn't think so. They left the dome together, walking through the airlock and back into the research facility's main corridor. The artificial lighting overhead hummed softly, casting long shadows across the polished floor. As they reached the departure terminal, Helix paused. There is a proposal under review. A Virellian human joint medical symposium. We will include your methods. Just try not to call them primitive. I will recommend the term self-regulatory resilience. Isaac grinned. Much better. A short while later, the shuttle lifted from the surface and began its return trajectory to Earth. Isaac looked down at the shrinking dome until it vanished into the gray curve of the planetoid. By the time he arrived back at the orbital station, the story had already spread. Technicians offered him tea as he passed. A Martian customs officer handed him a Polaroid someone had printed of him sneezing in front of the Drelvik. Someone had drawn a tiny crown over his head. He didn't mind. He stepped into the shuttle to Earth, leaned back in the seat, and finally allowed himself to close his eyes. The fever was gone. The comparisons were over. And somewhere in the galaxy, a whole group of aliens had just rewritten their medical textbooks because a stubborn human asked for soup and a nap. It was enough.